Ballot Question 5 aims to gradually phase out the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers in Massachusetts over the next 5 years, aligning it with the state's standard minimum wage. Currently, tipped workers earn a sub-minimum wage of $6.75 per hour, significantly less than the current $15 minimum wage. The system operates through what's called a tip credit, which allows employers to pay the sub-minimum wage provided the workers' tips cover the difference between the sub-minimum and the standard minimum wage. If a worker's total pay, wages plus tips, for a shift falls below the standard minimum wage, the employer must make up the shortfall.
The servers are already guaranteed minimum wage for every hour they worked. If they serve one person or 100 people, at the end of the night, they are walking away with a minimum of $15. They do not want to share their tips with back-of-the-house employees. They do not want to share their house with other employees not providing direct service to the restaurants. So because servers and bartenders are the ones that are going to be the most impacted, they do not want this, and therefore the Mass Restaurant Association is vehemently opposed to this ballot question.
Opponents of the measure, led by the Committee to Protect Tips, argue that raising the sub-minimum wage could lead to reduced overall earnings for workers, as they believe patrons might tip less or stop tipping altogether.
I think it's a very smart thing for the opposition to use this, however false, narrative that you're going to lose your tips to scare a large majority of tipped workers into voting no, because right now, because of the sub-minimum wage, a majority of your earnings are coming from tips. So if you spew out the false narrative that you're going to lose your tips, of course workers are going to say, no, we don't want this. But actually, I would ask any individual who says you're going to lose your tips, have you ever looked up how much a server or bartender is making hourly before going into a restaurant and had that determine whether or not you're tipping?
It's important to note that Ballot Question 5 does not eliminate tipping. The initiative would allow for tip pools, currently prohibited in Massachusetts, but it doesn't mandate their implementation. Currently, 7 states have eliminated the sub-minimum wage, and opponents often highlight California as an example of why this initiative shouldn't be enacted in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so California, which is the model for this, is the lowest percentage tip state in the country, and that's according to both Cornell University and Toast.
According to Toast, a point-of-sale management system, California has the lowest tipping percentage in the nation. However, their data shows that from 2022 to 2024, tips in Los Angeles, where the minimum wage is $16.78 per hour, rose from an average of $21.16 an hour to $29.66 per hour. Supporters of Ballot Question 5 also referenced the research of Dr. Jeanette Wicks-Lim, a research professor at the Political Economy Research Institute at UMass Amherst.
We had a hearing back in March, and a research professor from UMass Amherst who does labor studies testified in favor for one fair wage. She did a study on increasing the sub-minimum wage, and what she found is that in states where they increased the sub-minimum wage, it didn't have a statistically significant effect on employment, but earnings did increase. Right. So whether or not tipping percentages increase, that doesn't necessarily mean that your earnings are increased, because at 2029, when you're making $8.25 more an hour, it's like your tips could be as much as 60% lower, and you're still breaking even to what you were today. And I don't think this will make all Massachusetts restaurants suddenly start tipping 5%. Like, that's just not what our culture is.
So what do you think? Should Massachusetts vote yes or no on Ballot Question 5? Let us know in the comments below.